some countries have in some way resented South Africa's activism in order to, to have Minister Dlamini Zuma elected, despite, the respect that one might have for her. There is, related to that, some, South Africa's big brother, attitude that has been strongly resented and, spoken about, in many Pan-African fora. So this is a reality. Now, whether the South Africa's candidate failed is related or can be explained by the fact that she is a woman. I don't know, because there is the principle of parity that is part of the rules and regulations, and of the African Union. This is a principle that is, enshrined in the way the continental body conducts its business. So I wouldn't go that far. Together with my sister and friend Elinor. Now, one thing for sure, it is important. I think that conflict resolution is one of the important aspects to look at, when it comes to electing a candidate, to the continental body. Yeah. Now, one thing I don't know, because some people are giving as a proof of South Africa's big brother attitude, the fact that, apparently the rules and procedures of the African Union does not make either of the two candidates eligible to the next, for the next elections in June in Lilongwe. But Minister Maite Nkoane Mashabane, South Africa's Minister of International Relations and Cooperation, has made it clear that South Africa will field again the same candidate, that is Minister Dlamini Zuma. So I don't know how one can, read that or understand it, But what is sure is that this has fueled and strengthened, the fears of some with regards to South Africa's big brother attitude.
All right, I'm going to ask you a specific question, though, Professor Mbo, because as a former ambassador of Senegal to South Africa, what is the view in West Africa of South Africa?
The view well, it depends, if you ask me from Senegal.
From Senegal's point of view. Give me from Senegal's point of view, a big player in West Africa.
Well, in Senegal, as far as I know, Senegal has been, both the Senegalese people and the government have been closely, strongly supportive of the liberation struggle since Senghor. And there is a letter that, as ambassador, I gave to President Mbeki, I held to President Mbeki, which was a letter from President Tambo, to President Senghor, requesting his intervention in favor of the Rivonia tribe.
Yeah, but that was during the liberation era. But talk to me about since 1994, since this government.
Since 1994, of course, the perception is it's mixed perceptions, I should say, because the same drive and positive view on South Africa can exist among both government circles, civil society, corporate, etc. But on the other side, there is a reality that, for instance, South Africa's corporate, does not invest that much, in West Africa and in Senegal in particular. But there is also I think there is somehow the poor relationship, the relatively poor relationship, between Wade and President Wade and President Mbeki. Then, despite the effort that I tried to make as ambassador in order to bridge the gap, because I think that was important not only for the two countries but for the continental body, because these were two of the champions of the African Renaissance, of the African Union, and etc.
So it was that NEPAD friction.
The perception is, I should say that it's a mixed perception.
Okay. All right. We'll go to the calls. But before I do, just very briefly, if you may, for me, Mr. Kwaku, respond to this question about the rules. Because President Zuma this morning is quoted as saying that South Africa is confident that the candidature of Home Affairs Minister Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma will continue. Yet, on the other hand, and I was quoting the UK Guardian online, they were saying that under the organization's rule, their interpretation is that neither Zuma nor Ping will be allowed to stand again.
Well, that's exactly what we've been talking about. This is an organization that should be showing some transparency. There's no clarity about some of the rules, even if you went to the website. All these haven't been explained properly. So people are in that confusion, an enormous amount of uncertainty that is now creating some irritation among people. The early rules are saying 2/3 to win. If you don't get 2/3 on the first round, you go again until you get it. But until you don't get it, you've been having a clear-cut idea of who's going to win. Now, it is clear that I think what's one of the things I have to say, declare my hands, I really want a woman and South Africa to present still with that candidate, but it's still going to be divisive because of the timing. Now, those rules still allow, or the absence of rule, both written and written rule, or those are not published, they're not transparent enough for everybody, makes the speculation go around and very, very loud enough. Sure. What it's telling us is we need to make sure the rules are made public.
All right, let me take some calls. Dan Eferianachen, good morning to you, Dan.
Morning, how are you, Kalani?
I'm all right, welcome.
Good show. Kalani, I think the show, however important it is missing on a number of important issues.
Yeah.
I think we're focusing on characters and individuals who are contesting and forgetting the issues. One, the operations of PAP under the current leadership. Two, the success or lack of NEPAD under the current leadership. Three, the peace missions that have been disastrous, in many areas. I think your guest in the studio is wrong in characterizing South Africa as having a bloody nose, also as characterizing South Africa as a rich bread. I think South Africa has the legitimate right of contesting. No wonder we have some problems in many African countries that whoever contests is perceived as an enemy. Contestation is healthy. There's no enmity in contesting. People do not have to have bloody noses. It's a healthy exercise. And I think some of our African brothers must begin to learn that, especially academicians like your guest in the studio. He cannot come on radio and characterize, losses and contestations as if we are in a gangster battle. This is not gangsterism.
All right, well, he'll respond to you, Dan, in Vereeniging. Thank you very much. Mvusi Ebisho, good morning.
Bebeto and your guest.
Thank you.
It's very fascinating in Africa that when things go wrong, it's South Africa to be blamed, not the head of the AU. I mean, you had the AU mumbling on the Libyan matter, and when the Transitional Council came in, many AU countries broke ranks and supported these guys before AU pronounced on this. But I will leave that matter. What I wanted to find out is what nationality is your other guest, the one with surname starting with K?
Why?
I find him to be very anti-South Africa, and in a manner that his views are baseless. He made a point, Golani, that the perceptions of South Africa is perceived in a negative light in Africa. And he did not support that base. He did not support, rather, that perspective with any information. And I think someone who comes and makes arguments on very clear issues and decide to lambast South Africa, that person is really anti-South Africa.
Okay, let me respond, even though I don't necessarily agree that may be based on nationality. I mean, it doesn't matter. People could make the kind of claims regardless of where they come from. But nonetheless, sure. I think he will respond to you.
Yes, I'm going to respond, yes.
I'm not sure if he's talking about Professor Mbobo or you're talking about Mr. Kwaku. I think you're talking specifically about Mr. Kwaku here. Mr. Kwaku, just a quick response.
Yeah, I think clearly this nationality issue has nothing to do with the debate. The debate's got to be clear. What are the issues here? What happened and what do we do next? That's the point. And then we're analyzing critically how each protagonist, people went for a candidacy to win, went on to do it. I mean, South Africa has a scorched earth tactic. to move clearly to win this. At the last minute, they did a complete superb lobbying, trying to rally people to get them to vote for their candidate, Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma. And it didn't work as well as they had hoped it would work. So clearly, there is a failure. The failure for me, when I go and I look at the agenda the leaders have set themselves up to, were two things. Boosting intra-trade among African nations. That's the first one. The second one is to be able to elect that day, on the 30th of January, one chairperson of the AU Commission. That was not done. It's been postponed. And that's where I think it's a failure. Anybody who tells me that this is not a failure has to really have to relook at the issues again.
But I think what Mvusi is raising, Makola, is that how then do you say this is South Africa's fault? You mentioned a little earlier on that strategically perhaps South Africa's foreign policy was found wanting here, but the argument is that how is that South Africa's fault?
Yeah, but I think he's going on to say that I'm saying it's South Africa's fault. I mean, I could say it's anybody else's fault, and that South Africa has had its candidate. The reason why people are now asking questions is that at the last minute for South Africa having a candidate, it's a democratic right to do this. But it hasn't helped at all in the sense that we don't have a candidate elected. The rules are very unclear. Even South African government is not coming on the radio or anywhere to really tell people what's next, what needs to be done. And that vacuum of communication is strategically
I think that's important. And I
disadvantaging.
think, of course, that's the next question that should be asked going forward. But let me ask you this question, referring to what Eleanor was talking about. Could it be that the candidates were the wrong candidates?
I disagree with that. I think we have a very, very good candidate. In fact, last week I said here, we probably had some of the top best candidate we had. One of the things we could have had heard a bit more was to see their programs and perhaps have a debate a week before to see what they have. But it was not transparent enough. The candidates were just excellent candidates.